Hey, badass business owners, welcome back to the show. After last week and me going over Profit First and what that means and referencing the book Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, I had a few people that had reached out and said, Tammy, I'm really interested in learning more about not only Profit First, but obviously I want to grow my business, earn more money. What are some other books that you recommend? And what I thought I would do is just take a few minutes and tell you about 5 books that I recommend and why. First off, let me tell you, there are tons of great books out there, and you can listen to tons of shows and you can hear all these wonderful books. But not everybody's a reader, so I understand that. I would prefer to use audio. So for me personally, I use audiobooks because you can continue working, you can do it on your drive. It's a great way to take in the words and really feel like you have read the book, even though you're not sitting still doing it. Because let's face it, a lot of us just don't have a lot of time. That's when I fell in love with audiobooks because I just can't sit still. So I found reading has always been something that to me is torturous because that means me having to stay calm and not do anything else or multitask. And that just isn't the way my brain is wired. So if you're like me, I think that you can still take in some great books and do it through audiobooks. So just to recommend, I personally use Audible. I actually have their plan to where when I hear about a great book, I can download it right then because I have enough credits to be able to do it. Some of them you can pay as you go, some of them you can get credits, but whatever. This isn't a commercial for audio. Audible is just me just trying to help you guys find different ways to take in these books. Now, like I said earlier, there are people out there that will give you 50 million different books that you can read, and all of them are fantastic and wonderful, and I'm sure touch them in one way, shape, or form. But the 5 books that I'm going to go over today are ones that you will notice tend to show up a lot on people's radar. And there's a reason for that. And that is because they are books that really can make a big difference in your business. And so many people have had aha moments from these books that they definitely are worth the read. So if you were only going to say, hey, I'm going to take 5 books this year and I'm going to read those 5 books and use them in my business and then maybe revisit them once a year or something like that, if it touches you, then do it. Plus, you don't have to. One other thing with a book is a lot of times people think they have to take the entire book. And this is the way I review a book. If you get a nugget out of a book and it makes you more money than what you paid for the book, then it's worth it. You don't have to enjoy the entire book. For example, there was this book I read called The Big Leap, and a lot of people will talk about, that's not one of our 5, but it really talks about being in your zone of genius versus excellence and all this other stuff. I really, really enjoyed the first half of that book. I was not a fan of the back half of the book, but that's okay because what I took away was this one section that really talked about being in your zone and what really lights your fire. And I talk about what lights your fire all the time. So I really resonated with that because it's something I use in my own coaching business. So when it comes to a book, all you're looking for is something that will help you take your business to the next level or something that helps you become a better leader. Whatever skill set you're trying to work on, that's what you want that book to do. So whichever book you read or listen to, just make sure you keep in mind your goal is to walk away with one nugget. Now, what's cool about some of the books that I'm going to go over today, sometimes there's more than one nugget, and sometimes you get more every time you hear it. So if we go back to the Profit First, which of course is one of the books that I'm going to recommend, the thing that I like about it is I find that the more I go back to it, the more in depth it goes and the more I understand the next concept. For a lot of people, the big thing, like we talked about last week, was just understanding the fact that you need to make sure that you're always focused on your profit. And if you just took away the tax tip of having a separate account for your taxes, that alone is worth the money in the book, because that's the number one way new businesses get in trouble. And then the next time you come back through the book, you'll pick on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you'll continue to grow. And really, that's what you want to do with any of these books. So of course, one of our top picks is going to be Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Like I said, listen to the last episode if you want even more in depth on that particular one. But what I love the most about Profit First is it really creates a mindset to where you're not just being the leftover yourself, that you're making sure that when you price and when you do your books and you do everything, that you're keeping in mind that you have to be paid as the business owner. And we talk about that all the time here on this podcast. So of course, I'm going to recommend that because it reinforces what I always tell you and always preach. Always remember, sales minus cost of goods minus expenses equals profits. You knew I had to work it in. Come on. And he doesn't use that. That's mine. That's 100% Tammy. But it follows that whole thing to make sure that there's profit at the end for you. Now, the second one is probably going to be I've heard this one a million times as well. Plus, there's some episodes on this. And that's going to be the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And listen, folks, this is going to be on everybody's list. And you've probably noticed that anytime anyone talks about books that they recommend, if they are in a business, the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber always comes up. And there is a reason to it. And I'm going to bet you there's several of you guys that have already read it, got a nugget or two out of it. And then there's other people that say, yeah, it's on my list. I just haven't gotten around to it. E-Myth is another one of those great examples of where you might pull out a nugget or two and run with it. The E-Myth is one that has multiple layers to it. So some of the book is not going to resonate with you in the beginnings of your business because there's a lot of it that really ties into as you grow your business. So this is a book that you buy or put into your phone, whatever case you're going with, and you put it on the shelf and you revisit it every year or every 2 years as your business grows, because it really talks about the fact of how you continue to change your business a little bit in your thinking as you grow the business. But in the very beginning, when you're first starting, the biggest thing that you're going to get out of the E-Myth is going to be the hats that you wear in the business, because he really talks about you going from the technician, the person doing it, and then you've got your business owner hat, the operational person, and then you've got the dreamer, the entrepreneur. He has different words for him, but you're really wearing these three hats, and they're constantly in battle with each other. And when we first start our business, we're really the technician because we're the ones out there doing all of the work. And what happens is we don't spend enough time on the operational person, the manager, and or the entrepreneur, the dreamer of trying to grow the business. And what happens is as your business grows, each one of those roles will take on more and more because you're going to pull yourself. The goal ultimately is to pull yourself out of that technician role as much as you can, or at least to a point where you don't have to do it all the time, unless that's what you want to create, is just a job for yourself. And if that's the case, then that's what you do. But the E-Myth Revisited is one of those books that you put on your shelf or you just hold and you revisit, if you will, because it will help you grow your business. So that's another must. Profit First, E-Myth so far. Now, here's one that sometimes you'll hear and sometimes you won't. But if you are really trying to build a brand in your community. And I always talk about this as well, because I really believe that the person in your community that has the best brand is the one that's going to do the most business. Because if there's a ton of people in your marketplace that do what it is that you do, how do you stand out from that? So Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And in the beginning, he used to really talk about, on your website, and how do you have these 5 components on your website that really tells people what it is that you do. But what he's talking about in general is more about the brand as well. And he's kind of morphed as time has gone on, because he also has some other books that really go with this theme. And when you listen to him on his podcast and anything else that he does, he really talks about that brand. And I think that it's a great book for people. And the reason is it's going to get you to think differently. It's going to help you really clarify your message, because that's really what he talks about, is that how do you get people to understand what it is that you do really quickly, and not just saying that, hey, I'm a landscaper. No, it's I help people who do this. I mean, it really helps people understand what pain point you solve for them. And through clarifying your message, you can get across really quickly, easily for other people to remember what it is that you do, what problems you solve. So this way they remember you right away and they get it. Now, when they walk away, if they're in a room full of landscapers, for example, you're the one that's going to stand out because you were the best at clarifying your message and who it is that you serve and what pain point you solve. He's definitely worth a listen to. I got tons out of him, and I continue to revisit his stuff as I continue to try to improve my message. And it was interesting because I was really into him when I first got into BNI, and BNI tries to help you do the same thing, which is a networking group. And what I found is I actually understood it better from Donald Miller than I did through BNI. And when I was able to combine the two together, it really helped me a lot to really understand that purpose. And I try to help all the time here on both the podcast and the YouTube channel to help you guys with that same thing. Now, the fourth book that I want to talk about is called The One Thing. And it's by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. What I like about The One Thing is that it really tells you that we have so many things going through our brains, so many different things that we want to try to accomplish. And the reality is, if we would focus on the one thing that would move us forward for the day, we would get so much accomplished. But what happens is, and I am so guilty of this, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I constantly have to remind myself to focus on the one thing. And this is not something that comes easy, but it's important for you to at least have the concept in the back of your head. So by reading the book, you really understand the concept and you can remind yourself what it is that you need to do. And it's like, what he says is that what's the one thing that if you did it today, it's going to help move you closer. Because you're going to have these 5-year goals and these 1-year goals and these monthly goals and these daily goals and weekly, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, what's the one thing you need to do right now that's going to help you move towards those things? Because there's a lot, let's face it, there's a lot of boxes that we check that don't necessarily get us closer to where we want to go. And let's just say, for example, because I've been talking to so many business owners lately about getting their books cleaned up, okay, their P&Ls cleaned up because they're so far behind and they're lost and confused. Well, what's the one thing that you can do? The one thing you can do is get this month current, then go back and get last month current, and then go back and get the month before that current. But meanwhile, you're constantly staying current on today's month. That's the one thing that you can do. Now, granted, if you have not gotten 2021 done, you're going to have to get it done for your taxes by October. But what's the one thing that you can do is make sure that today's process for today's numbers are good. And if you can make sure that today's process is good for going forward, then you can go back and fix the rest. But if you constantly chase the past, then you're never going to get caught up. So what's the one thing that you can do to help you with your P&L? Same thing within your business. If you have a broken process that's in your business, what's the one thing that you can do that will help you fix that process or to make a difference or to take away that pain point? So that's what I like about the one thing, is it really puts into your head the concept of stop. What's the one thing that you need to do and help you move forward on it? So The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. It's another great book for you to be able to read. Now, my fifth book that I want to talk about is The 12-Week Year by Brian Moran and Michael Lennington. This is another book that I really love because what the 12-week year really talks about is the fact that we constantly give ourselves excuses. Think about it. We start the beginning of the year saying, I'm going to do A, B, C. These are my resolutions. I'm going to be better at, and this is what I'm going to accomplish, and blah, 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 blah. And most resolutions are toast by February. And let's face it, right now it's July at the time of this recording, and most of you have forgotten all about whatever your goals were back in January. And what's going to happen is we're going to get into October, and all of a sudden everybody's memories are going to get cleared, and they're going to oh my God, I got to get all this done, and I've only got 3 months left. And what happens is we get on this cycle of start strong, go weak for 6 months, then go strong. The 12-week year just says, hey, look, why don't you focus on the next 12 weeks? Treat it like a year. What are your 1, 2, 3 goals that you plan to accomplish over the next 12 weeks? And let's focus on those things. So it kind of ties into the one thing if you think about it. But over the next 12 weeks, what's something that at the end of that 12 weeks that you can walk away and say, wow, I really accomplished that and it moved my business forward. Now, I want to warn you now, the 12-week year also goes into this whole planning and tracking and everything else. And honestly, that helps some people. I mean, some people are total box checkers, and some people like that accountability, being able to go to the paper, in which case definitely use that. But for a lot of you, if that's not your thing, I don't want you to get discouraged from using the 12-week year thinking, because once again, it's about the concept that's important, and you can track that whichever way you feel best, and maybe bring in, the good thing is to have an accountability partner. I like that piece of this. I actually do this with a business owner now, where we check in on his each week on his 12-week goals. But the main thing that you want to walk away with is, how do you cram 4 years into one? And that's really what you're going to get if you think about it. Because if you do a 12-week year, then you're going to have 4 of these in a given year. So instead of accomplishing just 1 year's stuff, you're really going to get in 3 or 4 if you really focus on this. So it's another great book. So just to recap, the 5 books that I really think every single one of you guys should at least check out is going to be Profit First, E-Myth Revisited, Building a Story Brand, The One Thing, and The 12-Week Year. I think those 5 books alone, everything else will be gravy, if you will, but these 5 books alone will give you some really great tools for your tool belt. And it's not necessarily that you're going to do them every single day, but if you have them swimming in the back of your head, what it's going to do is it's going to make you think better as a leader of your business and as a business owner. Because if you can get those concepts constantly back there being your guiding light with the best steps to take, what you're going to find is you're going to make better decisions. Because when you come to those roadblocks or to those impasses or forks in the road, you're going to go, okay, what's the one thing I need to do today to get closer to that? What's going to help me get to the goals that I have? Or what's going to lead to more profit? Or what would the entrepreneur in me think versus the technician? Who's talking here? And will this as profit? And is my message really clear on what it is that I need to do? You see how I'm saying these all can overlap really well and give you some great tools in what you're going to do. Now, in the show notes, I'll put links to all of them. Yes, they're affiliate links, but I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the how do I help you get the information that you need to be even more successful. And like I said, I personally use Audible, and I think that is a great tool for me personally, because if you hate to sit down and read, use Audible. But if you love the books, I mean, definitely grab the books. Some people actually, what's interesting, on these 5 books or any books that they really love, a lot of people do both. They have the Audible, they listen to it. If it really resonated with them, they buy the physical copy and then they go, or on Kindle, whichever one they use. And what they do is they highlight the sections or put sticky notes next to them so that they can visit those sections in the future. And I know, for example, on eMyth, there was a couple sections at one point that I marked to say, hey, I'm not ready for this yet, but I might need it later. So that's another way that you can do it as well. Once again, if you ever find a book that really resonates with you, do all 3, audiobook and the physical copy or the Kindle version. This way you can revisit it over and over and over, because there's something in it that resonates with you and you want to make sure that you can run with that. All right, this episode's getting longer than what I wanted. I'm going to go ahead and button it up, but check them out. I hope that this episode helped you, and I appreciate the suggestion from everybody to do one on this because I've never really done one of them. And with that, I will talk to you on the next episode. Bye for now. Hey, badass business owner, before you go, as you know, I'm a huge believer in you knowing your business numbers. After all, it isn't about how much you sell, it's about what you keep. And the best way to grow your profits is to start diving in and understanding those business numbers. To help you on this journey, I have created the Know Your Business Numbers course. We will walk through how to read your profit and loss statement. You'll learn the key calculations that'll help ensure that you're making a healthy profit on all of your products or services, plus a ton of other good stuff that'll help you learn how to use those business numbers to create even more sales and profits. Just check out the link below in the show notes or visit knowyourbusinessnumberscourse.com. So if you're ready to increase those profits, it's time you start diving into your business numbers.